Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. Today I've got a couple of things I want to do on my wife's car. She's got a 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's like I said, it's old. You think about the age of this vehicle, there's been opportunities for lots of people to touch lots of things on here and maybe not necessarily do things 100% the correct way. I'm going to show you an example of this. Now, originally, this had molded on battery terminal connectors molded onto these wires. My suspicion is eventually the wires get corroded inside the original molded ones, from what I've seen in the past. And then people will cut them off, strip them back, put on one of these, I'd call them temporary or an emergency fix to get you going again and get you home. But then you need to fix it right. Because these clamps, where they strip it and put it on these clamps and tighten it down, still allows the wires to corrode, oxidize, and lose connection over time. Just a perfect example is just the other day, my wife and I were out shopping, go to get in the car to head home, hit the switch, nothing. Come out here and I wiggle this a little bit, all of a sudden the lights come back on, and boom, it starts, and you see a little spark jump when it started because of the draw, and there's a lot of amperage going through there. So my goal is to fix this properly. I have a couple of these. I'm going to attempt to use them. I've used them before on other things. They already have solder in them. These are actually solder on terminal connections. So I had to buy the bigger ones. These are 1/0. You can buy them down to 4/0, which would fit just basically this wire. But I know I have 2 wires going in each one of these just by this design. So what I'm going to do is take this loose. I'm going to cut this apart because this harness is all kinds of, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of how this is hooked up, but I need a little bit of extra cable to be able to get this bad boy soldered in there properly, and then I'll have a good permanent connection. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So one of the things I want to do is I want to get all this wrap and stuff off of here. I'm not sure why Jeep did the harness this way. Most vehicles just have like a wire coming up to it, to each terminal, and they do all this other kind of mess harness somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Be careful not to cut into the wires, and get this harness freed up a little bit here so I can work with it. This is just like a plastic wrap that's around here. Let's see how that comes off. Right now I'm just keeping it connected to the battery just so it's kind of holding it. But then I'll disconnect the negative terminal and get after it. Okay, now that I've got all this freed up, I actually might save some of this. This is some hard plastic that helps support the wires. And it was, since I cut it, I can actually put it back together, interlace it, and it's back solid, wrap some of my good tape around it, rubberized tape, and then it'll be back as good as gold. But as you can see here, what somebody did is they've had this apart. This wire, these two green wires, should be running right simultaneous with this. It doesn't even have to be hooked to this stuff here. I might even wrap it separately and just use a zip tie to hold it in place. So in the future, I don't have to deal with untaping all that crap. And then this green wire here is along for the ride. It comes out of the same harness down here, but just runs along here to run somewhere else. So it's got, I don't know. And you can see how this wire here, I don't know if you, let me get you in close here and show you what happens. As you can see, this wire here, see how that wiggles around there? That's not great because that means it's not a good stiff connection. And look at that, I can actually, just like that, pull the negative terminal right out. So how good of a connection could that have been? And then once that one's pulled out, this one probably just pulled right out too, just like that. So that'll tell you how good of a connection that is. It's sorry at best. So let's see if we can get it fixed right. So there, in essence, I have disconnected the negative battery terminal, and then I can disconnect the positive. And then I'm going to pull the battery out to give me some working room in here, because I'm going to have to hold this and solder it and get some heat down in here and get me some good wire showing here. And see, there's plenty of extra wire here. I can strip back, get to some good stuff, and I will probably even tin it with some solder before I attempt to solder, just to make sure it gets a good solid connection. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and pull the battery out once I pull this positive terminal off. So as you can see here, I've got some corrosion on the battery terminals. Blow a little bit that away. You can pick these up for very cheap at your automotive stores. It's a one for cleaning, say for inside if you had a good terminal that you want to save and get rid of corrosion. This fits inside of it and cleans that out. Then the other side is actually for cleaning your battery post. So you can actually just run that around there clockwise like that a few times. Do that on both of them. And it brings that back to a bright, shiny lead surface. And negative. One's a little bit bigger than the other typically. So you see it won't fit on there. Fits right on there. This has a little positive symbol on it. That one has a little negative symbol on it. Battery posts are two different sizes. So when you're soldering these on, you want to make sure you're soldering on the right one to the positive and the negative. Because it won't fit otherwise, and then you start stretching or collapsing, and then the things just won't be right. So now I've got this cleaned up. It looks like those will fit nice. So you can see here when that's soldered on, it's just the cable's going to come off there nice and clean. None of this garbage. That's garbage. You can melt that down, folks, if you want to, and turn it into some fishing weights. That's all it's good for. All right. So let me see what I can do to prepare the wires for the solder. Okay, first thing I got to do is cut off some of this nasty wire, the old nasty here. And it's going to take a good set of cutters like this to get that done. This is no good. It's all got oxidation, corrosion. It won't take solder. I'm actually quite worried what might be just back in here that might still not be good clean enough wire. So let's strip it back a little bit. Let's see what we got. Okay, wish me luck. Now what I have is kind of a rigged up little deal. I got my vice grips taped to a board to hold this piece in place firmly. So when I heat it up, I can get this in here and continue to heat it. The other thing I did is I've got a piece of metal back here to block the heat from getting places I don't want it to be. So in essence, I've created a little heat barrier to kind of protect some things here as I'm heating things up. Because you're trying to keep track of a bunch of different things at once. The flame and everything can get away from you. So let's try it here. Let's see if I can get it hot enough to do what I need it to do. You saw how that heated up? And that just sank right in there. Now I'm just holding it in place to let it cool off a little bit. So I get a good, nice solid bite on those wires. That's solid now. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. You see how that helped deflect a lot of the heat? So it didn't sit there and burn this cap off or get anything hot behind it that wasn't supposed to get hot. Get this out of the way. The nice thing about these terminal ends, see oh, it's so warm. But that makes a nice solid connection there. The wires are locked in. And what I'll do is I'll put some terminal grease around all this stuff to keep it from corroding in the future. So now we got nasty here, number 2 to deal with. Let's go ahead and strip it back now. Okay, now I've got 2 very solid connections. There's no wiggle there. That means everything's biting down good and hard like you want. Time to put the battery back in. battery back in place. Looks like the terminals are going to reach no problem. Little tip here. These always get a little rusty, these hold down bolts. I like to, myself personally, just get yourself a little never seize. Put that on that thread. It'll do two things for you. It will make sure that thing threads in nice and easy. Going back in, which is what you want. And next time you go to take it out, it'll back out really easy. Won't get all stuck. See, it was squeaking coming out. Now it's just gliding right in. There, battery's locked down nice and solid now. We can put the positive battery terminal on. Just like that. Got a good solid connection now. Look at that. Isn't that so much cleaner and neater than it was? You can put the negative back on now. That's tight. And now I can put this stuff back around here if I want. Looks like I might have to shorten it up a touch. I got my handy dandy shortening tool here. We'll just cut that. Like I said, we ain't trying to make it perfect, but we can make it close to what it was. So now I can put that back around there like that. This other one I can put back around over the top of it the other way. And we'll button that up. That looks neater and better than that tape did anyway. Now, that's a much better fix than whatever somebody else did on it. Now, the final step. Now that we got good, solid, solid terminals here, some battery protector and sealer. You want to use this on it. This is by Permatex. And it's supposed to spray. We'll see if it does. Looks like it's just kind of squirting out of there. But that's okay, because I'm just going to coat this thing. There, it's trying to spray some there. But the whole idea is to coat this thing in battery protector. And I'm doing it around, focusing here too, because that's where I got fresh solder. And this will help seal that up. This is no time to be neat and clean. I'm just gonna, because this is gonna stop all your corrosion from happening again. Now I'll go ahead and wipe up the excess off the battery and other places it overshot, but I'm gonna leave it heavy in the terminal areas. I ain't worried about that. That's where you want the protection, is around them terminals. And this little bit of extra floating around this battery ain't gonna hurt a thing. I don't even care if it collects a little dust. Dust doesn't kill connections, corrosion does. So we're gonna clean that up a little bit there. We'll call that a job well done. And that's the proper way to fix your battery terminals, folks. That or replace your cables. One of the two. That's your two choices. Like I said, if you're stranded somewhere, you got a bad connection, you go to the store and buy one of those emergency connections, that's fine. But don't forget about it, because it won't keep you going for the long haul. All right. One last thing I want to check. Let's see if this thing starts. And then we're going to check the voltage. Looks good. That's exactly what we want. We got plenty of juice going to the battery, and that's why I put it right on top of the post so I'm not touching the wiring at all. That lets me know what's actually going into the battery. Now, just for fun, we'll see what it is when it's just sitting. So your battery is normally about 12.3, 12.5 volts. Sometimes they're up to 13. But when it's running, it'll be up to 13.5 to 14 volts, like that. That's so it can put juice back in the battery, charge the system, and keep everything running. All right. I'm going to call that a job well done. And a job done well. Get a little bit of extra overspray off here. That stuff will dry to a tacky sealant type thing, which is what you want it to do. Well, folks, I hope you found that helpful. It's a quick, easy way to do that. It's not quick and easy, but it requires a couple of tools. Those terminals, they're not cheap. At the Napa, this is called a 1-gauge terminal. One was part number 728521. The other one's a 728520. So there's a positive and a negative one. Both of them were $10.01 a piece. But as you can see here on this one, to replace this whole harness on the particular Jeep here, to get all that wiring in that harness where it's all clamped together, made to fit, I've seen it around 150, 160 bucks, maybe as low as 90 bucks. But I couldn't see spending that kind of money yet. If this happens to fail on me again, then I'll go there. But, you know, 20 bucks is $20.02 with a little solder and a little extra stuff here and there. We got it up and running again, and I think it's a good fix. I would trust this. I would drive it and go anywhere and trust that fix to last me a long, long time. So, like I said, I appreciate you folks watching. Hope this was helpful. Hopefully this gives you another idea. Maybe you didn't even know those terminals were available. I just learned about them about a year ago when I started working on my boat stuff. And a guy at the Napa store told me, he says, hey, we got those solder on that comes with a little pellet. And some of them have a pellet you just drop in there. This had the solder already in it. And if you were running a 4-gauge wire in there or 1/0 wire or whatever wire, if you buy it specific to size, there's enough solder in there that when you melt it and put it in there, it fills everything. Now, you saw me on this one. I added a little extra solder in just for the simple reason I'm putting two probably 1/0 wires or two 4/0 wires together into a 1/0. I'm probably saying this all wrong. You guys can correct me in the comments if you want. But I had a little extra room in there. That's why I filled it in. And now I got a good bond, a good solid fit there. The juice seems to check out good. So hope this was helpful. Get out there and do something fun, folks. This isn't necessarily fun for me. I'm not a big fan of working on automobiles. I'd rather work on boat motors and boats. But every now and then you got to work on the old vehicle that gets everybody around the back and forth to town and back and whatnot. So sometimes it's just necessary. And I sure do hate to have to pay somebody to do something that I'm capable of doing myself. And that's why I'm hoping to educate some other people out there. That's like, save yourself some money. Just like this here, 20 bucks versus say 160 bucks. Now I got $140 that I get to keep and hang on to, or go buy some fishing stuff, have some fun with it. So get out there, folks. Have some fun. It's a little chilly out here today. It's 31 degrees out here right now. High today of 32. So we're going to get up to freezing point. Right now we're below freezing point. So that's why the solder and everything acted a little sluggish today, because everything's starting off pretty cold. So, well, get out there, enjoy life, have some fun, folks. Take advantage of every minute of every day if you can. Michael, out.